Welcome to the Defenders of Business Value, the podcast that helps business owners unlock the value they've built and exit on their terms. I'm your host, Ed Meisegland, and for the last 30 years, I've been helping business owners prepare, grow, protect, and ultimately sell their businesses. Whether you're a business owner, a buyer, or an advisor guiding others through the process, if you want to make your last deal your best one, you are in the right place. So let's get started. So today, I had the opportunity to visit with Ted Leverette. And for those of you who don't know him, he has been in the trenches of buying businesses longer than probably most. I've been a fan from afar because he's pretty relentless on LinkedIn on just commenting and producing content about how deals really are getting done. And like I said, he has been the original business buyer advocate. That's all he does. He focuses 100% on representing buyers in private deals, helping them navigate everything from sourcing off-market companies to due diligence, negotiation, and then finally integration. And there is no shortage of people out there that are peddling classes and books and this, that, and the other. And I will tell you that Ted was there way before any of them. And he's got this street cred to prove it. We're talking 30 years doing this. So Ted's been guiding entrepreneurs and investors to make smart acquisitions. He comes in, he coaches the buyers. They have a domain understanding of what they're looking for and how they're going to buy it. They have the financing, they have the deal team in place, and then they go find it. And so he's advised hundreds on deals. He's written books, like I said, and he's developed a reputation as one of the most experienced, and I can tell you, brutally honest, voices in the world of lower middle market M&A. So if you built a business and want to understand what serious buyers are looking for, or you want to buy yourself a business, Ted will give you the playbook that most people often pay dearly for. So I hope you enjoy my conversation with Ted Leverette. Ted, welcome to the show.
Hey, happy to be here.
It is my pleasure, and you've been on my radar for so long. And as I indicated in the bio, you are the original buy-side guy. Now, everyone is doing the things that you were doing many, many years ago, certainly when I got into the industry. So I'm curious to know what got you into doing buy-side work.
Well, I was a corporate executive, and quite a few people were quitting their jobs over the years that I was doing that, buying businesses, and from the outside looking in, it looked pretty easy. So I quit a super duper job, gave up a big bonus, almost $500,000 in about $79, and I bought a company. And within a 30-day period, I realized I probably bought the right company, but I definitely brought it the wrong way. Resulted in a year of lawsuits, put me with zero income because I had so much online because I personally guaranteed the deal. But at the end of the year, I prevailed, I won, and started over. And what it caused me to learn was all the things not to do. And then I just tiptoed into the market trying to help people just basically help them avoid mistakes. And over time, I learned how to actually do things right. And that led to me writing lots of books and having 125 franchisees and licensees that I taught my business who worked all around the world. And that gets us to today.
Yeah. So, and speaking of today, I want to talk about what are buyers looking for today and what should business owners be looking at building with that in mind?
This time, and we'll get into it more later, I hope, there are so many changes that are revolutionizing the entire playing field. But in terms of just doing deals, number one for buyers, cash flow. They want to see it stable. They want customers. They want them to be loyal. They don't want customer concentration. And the third thing they want is a path for growth. They don't want to be told there's growth. They want to see the path. If they do, they're willing to proceed. For the owners, the biggest flaw with owners is they have businesses that are dependent upon them. For us, that's a kiss of death. We're not interested. So the owners who have businesses not dependent on them, we want to see they've systematized their processes. We want to see that they've, documented the operation. We want to see that they have good business advisors, and really good employees. And we're going to interview those people, particularly the employees. And if they won't let us, we don't do the deal. And what happens is if sellers have prepared themselves well and they can meet our criteria, and I just told you, then we're going to want to go to a letter of intent because we're going to see that business is going to be worth pursuing.
Sure. In a macro level, how many business owners do you think are prepared to sell under the criteria that you just mentioned?
Well, I got to tell you who my clients are. My clients don't buy Main Street businesses. We don't buy hair salons and the things we drive by. My clients are used to making a couple of $100,000 to $500,000 a year in a salary if they're an executive or they already own a company and they're going for number two, and they're buying businesses that have $1 million net income per year minimum, and they're paying prices of 5, 8, 10 million. So that's my group. In those size businesses, not surprising, they do have systems, they do have good employees, they do have another layer of management. So I would say the ones that have done a good job, about a third of them, when we see them, we know we're going to do a deal here. We don't know what it'll be, but we're going to get it done.
I get it. So then how did the smart buyers de-risk the acquisition, right? And what can they learn on how a buyer de-risks this?
The biggest thing a buyer can do is avoid competition. More bad deals are done because buyers are trying to outbid the dumbest buyers, all aimed at the same company. In my world, we try to prepare buyers so that they're going to be the first choice of brokers, sellers, lenders. And by doing that, we skip the bidding war. The second thing we do is when we get into due diligence, we're not just looking at the financials, because a lot of people think that's where the risk is. Really, the risk is in the non-financials, like the relationships with the customers, employees, the landlord, the bank, the suppliers, particularly the supply chain nowadays. So we're looking at those non-financials. And the other thing that we're doing is we really want to know the marketplace. We don't even begin a search, by the way. My clients do not even begin a search until we have mastered the marketplace. We pretty much know what a good owner should know before we contact them or talk to them. And then finally, we need to interview the key employees. And again, these size of companies we look at, they let us do it, not up front and with lots of guardrails. And sometimes we have to do things that enable us to have those conversations with the seller permission, always at the permission. On the seller side, we say, think like a buyer.
How do you coach that buyer into mastering the marketplace? That was an interesting way of looking at it, because I'm certain all kinds of buyers are, they're doing this whole shotgun approach, and I'm just looking for an earnings stream, as opposed to, for you, it implies that mastering the marketplace that you're targeting. Can you talk more a little bit about that?
Yeah. And by mastering, what I mean is we know enough about it to want to at least begin examining offerings. AI, artificial intelligence, this year is what everybody who knows anything about deal making begins with. So if we're interested, for example, I have a client right now, he's interested in a B2B wholesaler in a particular industry. We go to AI and we describe the business and what we know about the industry that we can get from government sources. And then we say, tell us what we need to know and provide sources. And then we go to those sources and see what's available. And there are organizations that sell industry reports. In other words, within an hour, I'm not talking about days, within an hour, we now have a portfolio 30 or 40 pages long that covers all the relevant issues. We read that, we're done, that's enough for now. We can talk the talk with brokers and sellers.
Interesting. So what does it take to access the less crowded off-market deal flow? Because it seems as though there is buyers absolutely everywhere. And again, it's the signal amongst the noise. How do you tell someone like you shows up at seller's doorstep? How do they know that you're the signal amongst a absolute ton of noise? You have your buyer you're referring to, right? You guys have worked up the marketplace. You're kind of your buy box. Now you're going to go after particular targets. I'm looking at it from a less crowded off-market deal flow, right? There is buyers everywhere using the same tools that you and I grew up with targeting, hey, I want to buy your business. Hey, have you ever considered selling your business? And all of those things. And then here you come, right? You come with your buyer and you have the ability to cut right through that noise, right? Because number one, it seems as though you're prepared. You have some domain expertise that you're bringing along with that buyer. And now that seller is like, wow, these guys are different. And that's what I wanted to know. How do you do that? How are you saying, look, we're not like all these other guys that just sent you an email, text, and phone call. We're different. What does that look like?
Well, first of all, not only my clients, but the people who know how to do this stuff on the buy side, they create an online presence because nowadays everybody Googles. Nowadays everybody uses AI. But as of a year or two ago, everybody Googled. Last century kind of getting to know people. And because of that, buyers need to be visible before an owner or a broker or a lender talks to them. So what do? They Google. They get your name. They find out your LinkedIn profile. They read it. If there's any other stuff out there that's relevant to buying and managing businesses, they read it. If they like it, they're willing to take our call. Now, what we've done to cause them to know about us, it's networking and relationship. We're poking around in the industries that interest us. We're posting things on LinkedIn and on other platforms. So we're engaging in the conversation with people already in the field. And now we can drop names when we're talking to an owner. We can say, gee, just last week I was talking to the leading consultant in your niche in Austin, Texas about such and such. So it has to do with that kind of background being pushed out early. The other thing that's important, and I didn't put anything in my notes until just this moment, we show the money up front. All my clients have the money to do the deal, period. So we show it up front. And when I say the money, I mean to make the reasonable down payment so the bank will provide the rest of the financing and the seller will provide a little bit of the financing. So we get that out of the way right away. Most buyers and searchers don't do that. They hide.
That's a good point. So on the, I know that, that, and you do too, the SBA is, it's expanded their breadth of what they're willing to do. Are your clients using a lot of SBA or are they doing predominantly conventional?
About 50%.
Nice.
About half. I work internationally, so all of my foreign clients, they don't have the SBA. So there it's 100%. In the USA, about half my clients go SBA and the other half don't.
Interesting. How have buyers changed over our respective careers? I mean, I can't wait to hear this answer because I think buyers and sellers and just about everybody involved in this whole deal-making process, it's an entirely different animal than when we first got into it.
Funny you should bring that up.
Uh-oh.
Just this morning on LinkedIn, I was looking at an inane conversation of people talking about buying and selling businesses. And I commented, and I wrote it down. Here's what I said. Searchers can fake it. Buyers can fake it. Sellers cannot. And so what's happened is this AI, artificial intelligence, it's enabled people to appear to be something they're not. So we've got a lot of unqualified people, a lot of dishonest people on the playing fields. The key is, for those people, they're looking for gullible sellers. I mean, what's really changed is it's easy now to find out who's faking it.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. The tools of the trade and the scrutiny of the buyer as well as the seller, I agree, has changed.
One of the things that I recommend, and all my clients do, is we showcase their team. We show a lawyer and an accountant, those two for sure, up front. We put their contact information out with everything we're doing, and we say, go to the website, Google them. These people are known as deal makers. They're not those jerks that are needlessly killing deals. And what that does is it burnishes us. It makes us look better because these brokers and owners say, these people are not messing around. They're trying to get a deal done.
Sure. No. And that's what one of the things that you make clear is that you're a buyer advocate, right? I'm showing up. This is my role. And my fiduciary responsibility is with my buyer. And that's all I do here. And so what's the difference and why does that matter to buyers and sellers?
Well, business brokers, we know, represent sellers. They also try to help buyers in terms of completing a deal.
Sure.
But only the dumbest buyer would take too much advice from a business broker. I mean, their loyalty truly is to who pays them. The people who pay me, here's what they get. And not just me, but people who are the buyer advisors. They're going to get focused. The buyers are going to get focused. They're going to get focused on how to prepare, how to search, how to evaluate, how to close the deal, what to do after you close. With somebody who's been there, done that hundreds of times, the broker is not going to share that kind of insight because no one's paying him to do it. The seller isn't going to. So there's the difference. We just help buyers be prepared to do the deal they intend to do. And guess what? The better informed these buyers are, the happier they are after they close, because guess what? They bought the right business the right way. So sellers love that. Brokers love that. I have about 600 brokers who know me. They know Ted. And well, more than 100 of them I've actually done deals with over the decades.
Sure.
Long time. And they just know that if I'm on a deal, we're not messing around. We're not going to cheat somebody. We have the money. Our team is for real, and they're going to also try to do the deal. That also means brokers don't show us crap.
Yeah. No, 100%. So bringing it full circle, as you were saying, you represent the buyer. And I have to believe part of your service is not just getting the deal done. To me, I think it's easy getting the deal done. There's only so many levers you can pull in order to get it done. And then the real work starts, right?
That's correct. You know, what you just described, in sports, they call it unforced errors.
Yeah. That's good.
Buyers step on my clients step on their own feet. It's just part of the game.
Sure.
We just have to be better at picking ourselves up before things go bad.
You know, it's funny you say that because there was I read something yesterday called, I think it was called the GPS theory. And the GPS theory is, you know, like when you're going somewhere and you take a wrong turn, your GPS automatically recalibrates to get you to where you need to go. Same thing in deal making, right? There's a lot of turns that you don't anticipate, but the person that's shepherding you through that transaction, they're going to recalibrate and get you to where you need to go, right? I was thinking about that for our visit today because we're in this kind of in the same boat, just trying to get to the same destination. There's a ton of tools out there, right? Tools for listing advisors available. Why do so many buyers fail to find the right deal? It just seems as though like there's all kinds of entrepreneurship through acquisition conferences and gurus and books and videos and buy my courses and so on and so forth. I'm just curious, how do they still not find the right deal?
Hey, I might have bought the wrong business a long time ago because I didn't do any homework. But when I jumped out of an airplane the first time, I didn't just read the book. And that's where the Sherpas come around. So put that aside. Here's what really goes wrong. The tools, forget the tools. It has to do with how people behave. The analysis paralysis, you've seen it. Or the buyers or searchers who just don't have any clarity on what they're trying to do. So they'll say something like, I'm agnostic. I'll pretty much look at anything and then I'll decide what I want to pursue. Unless that buyer's, they got to align what? Their capabilities with the marketplace. And there's where the bridge doesn't happen. They have capabilities and here's the marketplace, but there's not a bridge to get it across. So this is why no matter what the tools are, deals don't get done.
Interesting. No, the agnostic thing, I can't tell you how many, I had to laugh at that one. I can't tell you how many times. I'm industry agnostic. You know, then it should be real easy to find you a business.
You know, part of that trauma and of the journey, keep in mind that one of the reasons buyers sometimes lose their foot, not buyers, searchers, people looking, they lose the footing, is they lose sight of their goal. You know, that forest for the tree thing. So what we like to say is, buyers, you keep your mind on the goal. Let us handle the guidance and the navigation. That way, you always have in sight where you need to be. So even though we may take some dips and turns, there is the goal.
One thing I didn't ask you, and I'm sorry for kind of stepping back, how long does it normally take to find a business?
Well, it depends. If a buyer has the money and they're prepared and they have the guts to do the deal, and the seller has a worthwhile business to sell,
sure,
and it's priced to sell. And let's use the slowest case. If it's an SBA case, the day after buyer and seller meet and say, you know what, we may be able to do a deal, I would say 6 to 9 months where everybody says we want to do the deal.
Got it. Okay. So You talk a lot about the hidden market of businesses that are for sale, right? And this is going to make everybody's ears perk up because everybody's looking for those deals. So what is that exactly? And why should even non-selling owners be paying attention to it?
The hidden market are the businesses that might be for sale, but they're not publicly advertised. And an example of that would be business brokers who have pocket listings. The owner said, look, I don't want to go through all that, but if you find somebody who's ready, willing, and able, and they have targeted my niche and you vetted them, I'd like to meet them. That's one group. And the other group, a term I actually trademark, BizFizBo, business for sale by owner. These are the by owner sellers. They've read the books. They don't want to pay the broker commission, and they decide to go out to market on their own. Well, they don't know how to do that. So they're basically hidden until someone like us randomly makes a contact to them and they say, yeah, okay, I'm for sale. The really good deals, we call it the whisper network. And it's where lawyers, accountants, and people in the trade, like landlords and leasing agents, have a first-hand view of a business that might go on the market. Because just about anybody who has any common sense starts with the landlord. Hey, I'm thinking of selling. Are you going to make the deal happen or are you going to queer it? So we're friendly with landlords and leasing agents. And there are other categories, wealth advisors. So we stay in touch with them. And if they know an owner who could be tempted, remember, they're not for sale. And they'll say that. They'll say, hey, this guy's not for sale, but look, you're in his lane. I can introduce you to him with the understanding that I didn't say he was for sale, and maybe you can have a conversation, and who knows where that leads. Well, this is why owners need to be in touch with their trade associations, online groups. If they don't do it, they need to have somebody in their business do it so that these conversations can happen.
Yeah. All right. From your side, what are some of the red flags or the deal breakers that instantly make a buyer walk away? I know you talked a little bit about systems and certainly earnings, but is there I just know that this is going to be bad. How do we avoid it before we get started?
Well, there are 4 or 5 things, and I track this stuff. It's not good when I have a client who doesn't do a deal. So we have to be able to anticipate what's going to go wrong before we put too much time and money into it. Here's what goes wrong. Here's why we run. Remember, we don't even talk to a seller past the first interview or the broker unless they show it's making the money we want. So if they say we're making 1.5 net profit, none of this EBITDA and all that other crap, we're looking for net profit. If they tell us that, we believe them because they're going to show us a lot of information. Why would they lie at that point? They might be making the money. But if we look at the financials and it's very inconsistent or very volatile, we generally see that as a red flag.
Sure.
The other one, we talked about it, owner dependency. If the business can't live without the owner, bye-bye. The other one is we ask the owner, how are you different from your competitor? If they can't give us a compelling reason, bye-bye. The other one is we're looking for this, like Warren Buffett says, sustainable competitive advantages. If they can't show us their advantages are sustainable, that means when the business changes hands, bye-bye. And the final thing, this is the big one, we look at the probable cash flow. And if it can't pay the financing, and I don't just mean the acquisition financing, but it can't pay whatever financing is going to be necessary after we get in control, we run like hell. So all these businesses are saleable, but just not to us.
And the funny thing is with these sellers, it's you got to understand that you have to look at it through the buyer's lens. And that's why I was so stoked about talking to you, because there's no one better to talk to than somebody that all they've ever done is work with buyers. Oh my goodness. All right. So let's talk psychology. So how does the buyer psychology differ from the sellers, right? When you're negotiating?
Buyers, it's all about risk mitigation, and it's all about their return on investment, period.
What does that return run, percentage-wise? I mean, ballpark.
Oh, boy. You know, it depends if it's a strategic or a financial buyer. It depends if it's some guy buying a business that he wants to run, because he's looking at what does it cost me to live and how much savings could I put away each year to build a net worth. So it's not a percentage. It's just basically cash. They're just looking at how the cash is versus some of the more, let's say, professional buyers, the people who do this for a living. They have all sorts of models, and they're demanding 30, 40% a year.
So how about the seller? What is the seller? So we now know the psychology of the buyer. The buyer's all about, I'm looking for the returns and it pays me.
Yeah,
and risk.
And manageable risks. Manageable risks.
So how about the sell side now?
Most sellers are so emotionally involved in their business and invested in it, the blood, sweat, and tear stuff. They are susceptible to dreaming up asking prices that cause us to end the meeting in the first couple of seconds. And this is where we like brokers. You will not find me being a broker basher. I think brokers do a great job if they have a listing fairly priced because they help get the deal done. But if they take a listing because the owner thinks it's worth a lot for some who knows what reason, the broker loses time and money. The business may not sell. I mean, it's just...
Well,
so
yeah,
that's
right.
It. It's really
yeah.
it. Just...
Yeah, I get you. And that's one of my beefs with the entire brokerage community is that, you know what? The strategy of, hell, let's just list it. We're going to get some market feedback and we're just going to whittle it down. Yeah, you know what? I get it. And in some cases that, I guess, works. It has to work because people continue to do it. To me, the process is the expert, right? We're going to get feedback and the market is the market. Sorry. And I prefer to position the kind of work that we do more like an investment bank. People are coming to you for domain experience, right? How do you get these deals done? And that includes not positioning from a value standpoint so outrageous that no one can make any sense of it. And if you don't want to play in that sandbox, that's okay. Just don't waste anybody's time because everybody really gets annoyed by thinking it's something, because it's easy to get a deal done. As you know, you can get a deal done. It's the hard part is the people involved. It just takes time and people that, again, it's back. We keep talking about it. You cannot make the same poor mistakes. There's too many people like yourself on the other side that's saying there are other businesses like this. Don't buy this. If it doesn't feel right, let's move on. And I don't think people realize that.
We say businesses are like buses. Another one will be by in 5 minutes.
Right. I get it. So how do sellers better understand how a buyer assesses risk? We're always talking about earning streams, right? That's the risk we're trying to preserve. And I suppose employees and systems. But how can they proactively reduce those perceived risks?
I'll give you 2 things they can do. Number 1, read my books.
Okay.
I have a book called How to Prepare Yourself and Find the Right Business to Buy. Guess what? It's for buyers. I have another book called, after you found it, How to Buy the Right Business the Right Way. So why are owners reading it? And I would say at least half of my sales of those 2 books are people in the trades, brokers, business owners. Because if you know how buyers are being trained, how they're being prepared, exactly what they're going to do, it's spelled out details, strategies, tactics. Somebody spends a weekend, owner of a small business, big business, they read those, they go, I know exactly what that buyer is going to be like.
Right.
Now, good news is, I guess it's the bad news. The bad news is most buyers don't do those smart things. So there is another benefit for the owners who get to be in the buyer's shoes by reading books like mine. They'll know a good buyer when they see one.
Sure.
But what happens for sure on the playing field? Well, the sellers are going to have to be able to provide some assurances, and they do it with seller financing, flexible seller financing. They do it with warranties, promising that everything's going to be the way they said it is. Mm-hmm. They do it with earnouts. They do it with transitional support. And by the way, before I forget, you buyers, just make a Post-it note, say, never forget my personal guarantee. Because even though you think you're getting flexible or forgivable seller financing and warranties and earnouts and you name it, when things go wrong, the bank's going to get paid.
Yeah. And it's funny you say it because that's one of the qualifying things with, we talked to a buyer. You understand you're going to have to personally guarantee whatever debt you take on, right? No, I'm not personally guaranteeing. Well, then we found our first problem.
Well, yeah. I mean, nowadays, I do shows. I got YouTube videos on this topic. It's possible for buyers not to give a personal guarantee. But if you're a first-time buyer, an individual wanting to buy and run a company, if there's going to be a bank, there's a personal guarantee. Now, if it's a hard money lender, well, guess what? You've pledged assets, and that's like a personal guarantee because they'll just grab them if you default.
Yeah, and again, once you get the street cred and you have a couple acquisitions under your belt, then you can pivot as far as your capital providers go, and have a little bit of leverage that you've got some street cred in doing deals. All right, so what are the biggest myths or misconceptions about buying businesses that you've seen that trip up either existing operators or would-be operators?
Some people think, because you read it online, that's how I know this, that the best businesses are the quickest ones to buy because everything's going to go well. It's just that it doesn't work that way. The numbers and all the things we've already talked about may be what some buyer is going to want to buy. But the myth is, what if it's not the right fit? That outfit would look great on her, but not her. This due diligence takes a lot of time, and it's not necessarily just to prove the facts. It's to determine, do I want to wear this outfit for the next 10 years? That's the myth. The misconception is that price is the only thing that matters. I instruct my clients, we shall never argue about price. It's either worth what we're paying or they're asking or it's not. Here's what we're going to worry about, the terms and the cultural fit. So things like ethnicity, blue collar versus white collar, the work week. These are more important than the price. In other words, I say if it cash flows, we'll buy it. If it fits.
Yeah. No, I get it. So in your experience, how often do transitions fall apart after the deal closes? Because, what Harvard did a study, and it said 87% of mergers fall apart due to integration issues. What role does the sellers play in that handoff? And I guess what should a buyer expect the seller to do, and vice versa? What should the seller expect? What does that handoff and that transition look like?
Okay, so for you people wanting to buy a business, right now is a good time to plug your ears. About a half to a third of businesses that change hands in what we call the lower middle market, the buyer is not happy. It means they're either losing money or they know there's going to be a shutdown, and that personal guarantee is going to become real important. And it's not just my opinion. There are studies done by various universities and other organizations that track organizations like, let's see, like search funds and institutional investors and turnaround people. And they publish articles on it. So It's a large number, very large number. Well, a third to a half.
Yeah. What role does the seller, or should the seller anticipate playing in that integration process?
Yeah, well, the integration starts in the first telephone call or personal meeting, because what we're looking for is, will these human beings be able to match their human sentiments and desires, et cetera, with business realities? So the sellers and brokers and their advisors, they've got to constantly be, from moment one, reading that buyer or that searcher to determine whether there could be a successful handover. And that has to do with there being realistic expectations and a realistic transition plan. I use that word twice now.
Sure.
An actual plan that's realistic that we talk about with the seller. Just before an LOI, we say, look, this is down the road, but here's what we need to know you're going to be available to provide. It's what we need. Is this possible? If the owner says, no, I'm going to Tahiti, I'm out of here, well, at least we know that now. Hey, I'll give you just one more thing.
Yeah.
I sometimes get calls from business owners who've read my books. They just know I work for buyers. And they say, Ted, here's what we want to know. What are the questions that I'm going to wish I asked before selling my business?
That's a good one.
Yeah. And so what those questions are is the questions they should have been asking themselves and asking buyers.
Yeah.
And a lot of sellers don't do that. Then they do a dumb deal, and then they wonder, shoot, if only I would have asked those questions. We have about 20 that I train my buyers to anticipate. So we ask, we hope they get asked because we know how to answer them.
Got it. And that's just part of the coaching, and I got to believe, I have to believe it's a high percentage. What percentage of people actually find a business once you start working with them? I got to believe it's off the charts.
Did they find it or buy it?
They buy it. They engage you. You go out and look for deals, and I got to believe it's enormous that people. Really?
Nope.
Once you get into it, I'll be dipped.
Nope. I am really good at screening people and not taking a client unless they know, I know, the lawyer knows, and the bank knows that financially and managerially they can do the deal. Yeah, I don't take the client unless we know that before I get the check, just to start. But here's what goes wrong. They lose their guts. They're in a community property state, and the spouse at closing says, I'm not signing that. You think I'm giving up my net worth just because you think that's a good deal? The gut issue. The other things is we say shit happens. Death, disabilities, divorces. One of the big ones, the people who hire me are C-level and B-level executives, most of them employed. These are people who are used to making a lot of money, and they're valuable to the company. And I've had quite a few deals where we want to do the deal, and the buyer, my guy, goes to the boss and says, I'm giving you a 30-day notice because that's about where I'm going to close on the deal. I just want to give you a heads up. And the guy says, would $100,000 do it? And they'll get a big bonus. They'll get a promotion. Or they'll say, hey, why don't you just buy my company? Yeah. So these people, hey, it's a lie. It's a lie. Folks, it's a lie. Anybody who tells you all my clients are 80% closed deals, that's a lie.
I'll be dipped. Out of everything you've said, that one shocked me. I would have thought it was off the charts, but once you explained it, I totally understand what you're saying. All right, a couple more. So over your career, what have you come to believe about buying and selling businesses that you didn't fully grasp when you were just getting started?
Yeah, it was probably why I made my mistake. What I have finally figured it out about 25 years ago, actually. But that was after about 15 years of bouncing around. I always looked at the transaction, trying to make the transactions work. And sort of what we just talked about, what I really know is it's the emotions and the visions of the sellers and buyers. It's not really that much about the finances. If the numbers work, it's the emotions and visions. So what I try to do, is we try to align those human elements with the business objectives. And if we get off the transaction and listen to the personal stories and see how those stories from the seller and the buyer sort of fit a goal that everyone's looking at, well, guess what? We call it the driver. Those are the drivers of the deal, the personal stories and the goals, not just the numbers.
Interesting. Deal intuition these days is a real thing, right? And either you have it or you don't. But anyhow.
Everything is personal.
That's a good point. All right, Ted. Last thing. So I know you've written all these books. Where can we find all the books? Where can our listeners find you? And what are next steps for the people that hear?
Well, if you Google Ted Leverette, particularly if you say business buyer advocate, you'll get 800,000 hits. You can click any of those. You could go speedier, let's say, to LinkedIn, or you could go to my website, partneroncall.com, or you could go to Amazon and type my name in, and you'll see my 2 business buying books. If you go to my website, you'll see a book that I've sold over 50,000 copies of, How to Get All the Money You Want for Your Business Without Stealing It. So those are some places.
Okay. And we'll have links to all of those in the show notes, so we'll make it super easy for everybody to get there. So, Ted, I was looking forward to it, and you delivered. I certainly appreciate all your time and wisdom and your willingness to come hang out with me today.
Well, you know what? This has been fun for me because, as I told you before we started recording, the questions that I knew you wanted to talk about, you really scoped my entire life, my business life. And I hadn't thought about that in a long time. And it was really hard for me to try to sort of see how the pieces fit together. And what it does for me today is I'm just more confident that we're on the right path.
Likewise. And I love this industry. I'm a student of it for 34 years. This is the only thing I've ever done. And so to find a practitioner that shares that kind of passion on just the deal making space, it's just such a wonderful time to spend with you. So thanks again.
Okay.
Thanks for listening to the Defenders of Business Value. If today's episode helped you think differently about building or selling a business, follow the show so you don't miss what's next. And if you want to become a more informed, confident owner, the one who knows how to grow, protect, and eventually exit at maximum value, subscribe to my newsletter. The link is in the show notes. And if you're ready to talk about your next deal, connect with me on LinkedIn. So until next time, we'll see you soon.